Is the world truly as divided as we think? Do our beliefs, shaped by our own experiences, ever truly reflect the whole truth? This ancient tale from the past life of the Buddha may hold an answer, one that speaks not just of the winds of the earth, but the winds of the mind. In a quiet monastery nestled deep within the forests of Kosala, two old monks had taken refuge in the serenity of the Buddha's teachings. They had renounced the world late in life, seeking wisdom after decades of toil and worldly attachment. One was known as the Elder Dark, the other as the Elder Light. They had taken their names upon ordination, symbolic of their contrasting perspectives. Despite their devotion, they were not free from questions that disturbed the mind. One such question had taken root between them, growing like a stubborn vine that refused to wither. It was a question as simple as it was divisive. When does the cold arrive? The Elder Dark was certain. Cold came in the dark half of the month, when the moon waned and the night stretched its fingers deeper into the world. The Elder Light disagreed. Cold arrived in the light half, when the days turned harsh, the winds grew restless, and the breath of the earth shivered under its touch. Neither could convince the other. Their words, wrapped in certainty, circled endlessly like a snake chasing its tail. The more they argued, the more entrenched their beliefs became, until one day they realized their endless debate led nowhere. So they turned to the one whose wisdom surpassed all, the Buddha. The Buddha listened with a gentle smile. There was no judgment in his eyes, no desire to prove one wrong and the other right. Instead, he spoke of a time long before, of a place untouched by temples or the robes of monks, a time when he had walked the earth in a different form. At the foot of a great mountain, there lived two mighty beasts, a lion and a tiger. They were bound not by blood nor by species, but by an unspoken pact of companionship. They shared the same cave, hunted the same valleys, and drank from the same rivers. They were not enemies, nor were they entirely alike. But harmony, even among friends, does not last without wisdom. And so one day, the same question arose between them. When does the cold arrive? The tiger, used to prowling in the darkest hours, was certain that the cold belonged to the night. It was in the absence of the sun that the world shrank into itself, when breath curled into mist and the trees whispered in hushed voices. The lion, king of daylight, disagreed. He had felt the chill wrap around him in the golden afternoons, carried on restless winds that swept across the plains. The cold was not darkness, nor was it night. It was something else, something that moved beyond mere shadows. The argument stretched over days, neither willing to yield. Each clung to his truth as though the world itself depended on it. And yet, with every word exchanged, clarity did not arrive. Only frustration. But unlike men, beasts do not hold on to pride for long. Realizing they would find no answer between them, the lion and the tiger sought out a hermit, a man who lived in quiet contemplation at the base of the mountain. And when the two creatures came to him with their dispute, he listened in silence, nodding as each spoke. Then, in a voice that held no weight of argument, he answered, "The cold does not belong to the dark half, nor does it belong to the light half. Cold is the child of the wind, and wherever the wind stirs, there the cold will be found." The lion and the tiger, upon hearing these words, felt the weight of their argument slip away like mist in the morning sun. For they realized then, it was not the cold that was at war, but their own rigid minds. As the Buddha's words settled in the air, the two monks lowered their eyes. They had spent so long debating their own experiences, never once considering the possibility that the truth did not belong to one or the other. The Elder Dark thought of the nights he had spent shivering, believing the cold was an enemy of the dark. The Elder Light thought of the days when the wind had made the sun's warmth meaningless, believing the cold belonged only to the light. But now they saw the truth. The cold had never been theirs to claim. It did not take sides, nor did it follow the rules of men. It simply existed, arriving when the wind carried it indifferent to human certainty. And so, the Buddha concluded, wisdom is not found in clinging to our own experience, but in understanding that truth is larger than ourselves. For what was cold, if not the same as suffering? It arrives when conditions allow it, not because we wish it to be one way or another. The monks bowed deeply, their hearts lightened by understanding. They had entered the Buddha's presence seeking victory over an argument, but they left with something far greater: the knowledge that certainty is the root of all folly, and wisdom begins where certainty ends. As they walked back to their forest dwelling, a breeze stirred through the trees. Without asking, they simply pulled their robes a little tighter and smiled. For now they understood. It is not the cold that troubles the mind, but the stubbornness that refuses to accept it. And just as the wind carried the cold without favor, so too must wisdom move freely, without clinging, without possession, without the need to divide the world in halves. For truth, like the wind, belongs to no one. Isn't it the same with the divisions in our own lives? We argue over right and wrong, dark and light, good and bad, each convinced that our experience is the only truth. But perhaps, like the wind, truth flows beyond the limits we impose upon it. Perhaps wisdom is not in choosing a side, but in seeing beyond them altogether.